Welcome to my session. As I heard, it's the last session for you. For me, it's in the morning, so I'm here from Germany. We have a few hours time difference. It's not so much, but I think it's always funny if you have global events, and then you see that we all can come together virtually, even with different time zones. And for the end of your day, I want to tell you how to become a business application superstar in 5 steps. And before I go into detail, I want to explain how I selected this title for my session. Um, I think with the Power Platform, we have a huge chance to build business applications in a better way than it was in the past. And I brought a story of my company with me, and I want to explain how we evolved through the years, and what we now are doing with the Power Platform. And then you will see that the 5 steps are quite easy. You only need to start your journey, and then one step after the other, it gets easier and easier. So before we go into our topic, I think you saw the slide a few times today, but I also want to thank our sponsors, because without sponsors, we couldn't do these events. I know that I, as a speaker, and you as an attendee, you don't have to do so much regarding these sponsors, but think about all the organizers who have to think if something is possible, what about a raffle and so on. And we need these sponsors because otherwise we wouldn't have the chance to explain new stuff and to learn. So have a look what's there. We saw the short sponsor video before my session, and I love the different solutions which are out there. So you can build a really cool workplace with the help of these different tools. And that's something I want to tell you about myself. So my name is Nicole. I'm an MVP for Office Apps and Services, and I brought here my favorite hashtags because my hashtags, and I use them on Twitter and LinkedIn primarily. Um, they explain what I am doing. So in my company, I'm working as a managing consultant for modern workplace. I have a huge focus on Microsoft, but it's not limited to Microsoft technologies. And my focus area in the Microsoft part are related to Microsoft Teams and the business applications. That's why I'm doing a lot of stuff with the Power Platform. And I really like this new idea with the collaborative apps as well, because then you have a combination of the collaboration part, which is focused on Teams for me in my daily business, and the business applications, which are related to Dynamics 365 or maybe other legacy applications in your company. And I'm really excited what's going on this year with regarding mixed reality. So think about Mesh for Teams when it will show up in summer. So maybe we have a chance to do events in a little different way. I'm really excited about this. If you want to contact me later on, you find me here on LinkedIn and Twitter. I have also added my email address if you prefer this way. So please ask everything during the session, but I know sometimes I get a question after the session, and then I'm thinking about how to contact the speaker. So please feel free to contact me. And now let's start. As I said, I want to tell you a story of my company, and I want to introduce you now to Tanya. Tanya is working in the same company as I, and we are close friends because we started at the same time in the company. And yeah, Tanya and I, we have coffee breaks on a regular basis. And then she is telling me what she is doing. I'm telling her what I am doing. And yes, she works in the HR department. And sometimes I think, oh my God, it's really hard for her because if I see that there's a problem and you can help with a new IT solution, then maybe I sit down and I write some code and then we have our new IT solution. In most of the cases, it's really small stuff I'm doing there to build a solution because I have to work in my projects most of the time. But for Tanya, that's not possible. And Tanya told me that she sees a problem regarding the recruiting process. And she wants to have a new business application. Yeah, and I recognize that I was thinking about how to build this business application, and I asked her a few questions, and it felt in a way that I was some kind of a internal consultant at this moment, because these questions are not so different from the questions I'm asking an external customer. Because I asked Tanya, what about our current business process? So what do you think about our recruiting process? Is it a good process? Is it a process you need to improve? What are you doing the whole day if we focus on the recruiting process? Yeah, and Tanya explained me that it's really boring for her that there are so many different ways, and our company wrote massively during the past years. So we got new companies which were bought, and then we needed to integrate them. But every company itself had an own recruiting system or a recruiting process. Depends on the size of the company. If you have a real business solution, or if you are doing this with 2 or 3 people and you don't really need any more than Excel, Word, and whatever. Yeah, and she said, yeah, it's a problem. So we have not the central solution. Everybody is doing this in a little different way. And if you see these gear icons here on the slide, they could fit into each other, but in some cases they aren't. And that's what Tanya is thinking about. So she sees these different gear icons are symbols for the different business processes or business solutions regarding the recruiting process. And now she wants to everything to fit into each other. And that's where I ask my second question. So should we optimize or change our business process? And Tanya answered immediately, yes, I want to change something. Then I had another question, because I asked her, are you sure that you want to change everything? What about the other colleagues in the HR department? Are they thinking in the same way as you? Tanya was silent at this time, because yes, she was thinking from her perspective, but she learned with this question that other colleagues maybe would say, yes, we could change our business process, but please, my part of the business process, so the solution I am using, should stay. Yeah, so we have some kind of a conflict at this moment. And I said to her, okay, go back, talk about this this topic with your colleagues, and you need to get an idea as a group how the business process should work in the future. And please keep one more thing in mind. So think about if you want to support the whole business process with an IT solution, because as Tanya explained to me, they are also some colleagues who are not working with an IT solution at all, so they need to have some solutions, talking to each other, writing some notes anywhere. So it is working today. So we need to find out what's going on there, and maybe they will say, yes, it would be nice to have a recruiting system, so a central solution, but for doing interviews and so on, I don't need an IT solution. I need to do my interview, and then I get a decision if I want to hire a candidate or if I won't do this. And then I need to enter this decision into a system. So, okay, Tanya went back. She was thankful for these recommendations, and then I didn't hear anything again from her. And then I was on vacation, and after I came back, I I heard that there was something going on. So one of my colleagues talked to me that Tanya contacted him because I was not available during my my time off. Yeah, and then I heard about this story. So Tanya's first thought was, ah, I know what's going on with SharePoint. I'm working with Microsoft Teams. I'm working with SharePoint behind this, and I know how to create lists and to work with libraries. And as Tanya knows these things, and I talk a lot of or very often with her about SharePoint in the past, because I started my career with SharePoint, but it's a long time ago. Um, and she thought about, yes, what would happen if I create lists for the candidate information, for the applications? Maybe I need a document library to store all the application documents and my notes and so on. Yeah, and so she went to Microsoft Lists and created several lists. Then she was thinking about the order of these fields. So if you see the screenshot here, it wouldn't be a good idea to enter the email address before you enter the last name and the first name of the upcoming employee. And maybe you would also add the address first. So think about changing the order. Maybe you don't want to go with the attachments, which are activated automatically in every SharePoint list. So maybe she would configure this in a different way. And then she will add simple validations. And for Tanya, simple validations mean that she decides which field gets a mandatory field and which field is an optional field. So Tanya was ready, but she was not happy with the state because she had a lot of fields. So we only see these 4 fields here on this the screen. But think about if you want to store every information for a candidate and maybe for the position he is applying to. So she had a lot of fields and she wanted to add more flexibility in her form. And then she was thinking about a solution, what she can do, because she wanted to prepare everything before she talks with her colleagues, because then maybe it would be easier to get the solution she really wants. So she wants to have an advantage for this meeting. Yeah, and then she remembered a talk with me or many years ago, I would say now. And she remembered that I talked about InfoPass forms. She didn't remember that I found it really boring to build this InfoPass forms, but she was thinking about doing this stuff. And she remembered also that the InfoPass designer was part of the Microsoft Office suite. And so she was looking on her PC, but she didn't find this. And so she asked my colleagues in the IT department, and she got a quite old PC, and InfoPass was installed there. And then she started building her electronic forms, because InfoPass was a tool for power users to create electronic forms. Yeah, and so she built the different forms. She knew that there was an integration into SharePoint, but she started with a standalone form. And then she changed the layout of the form, so you can change the layout in this way that you have two-column layout or a multiple-column layout. She added more rules, so she didn't only have these mandatory field validation. She also added validations that some fields only get visible if another field is filled out. She added validations for the buttons to store data or to get on a next view, because as I said, Tanya had a lot of fields, and now she split it, the form into separate views, so she got some kind of a wizard to go through. And that's pretty cool if you want to create or yeah, you want to support a business process, because you start with a small set of information, and during your business process, you complete this data more and more. So Tanya did this, and then she had a problem, because maybe you already guessed it. So Tanya had to get an PC with an old MS Office version. She was working with InfoPass forms standalone. She had no connection to her SharePoint lists, and the SharePoint lists were located in Microsoft 365. So she didn't get the relationship, and then because I was on vacation, she was looking for somebody else, and she had a talk with Daniel. Daniel is working in the same team as I. And so she asked him, okay, please, can you help me? I have this SharePoint list and I have this InfoPass forms. I want to build the first version of a business application to support our recruiting process. And Daniel had a look on this solution, this prototype. He said it's a prototype, and thank you very much for this, but I cannot use this to build the final solution. I will build this from scratch with HTML. Maybe if we want to integrate other applications, for example, the employee database, then I need to build a web service. Maybe it's based on .NET. For the installation, we need some PowerShell scripts. And yeah, I would also provision your SharePoint list via PowerShell. And did you hear about SPFX? That's a cool solution, and I can build some web parts for you. So if you want to use your solution later on from SharePoint, then you will have a web part, you can place it on your page and so on. And while Daniel was talking about all this technical stuff, Tanya asked herself, what is he talking about? And I really hope that he understands me. So now we have the standard situation if you want to build a business application. So in the past, you have an expert of the business process. So Tanya is our expert. And you have the technical experts. But the technical experts need to learn what's going on with the business process, and the business process expert had no chance to be part of building this business process. And I think with the Power Platform, we have to answer this question. Aren't there any other options? So do we really need to explain every single detail of a business process to a technical person? Or is there another way? And I say, yes, there is another way because the world has changed. And you can hear it, you can feel it. We are living in a really exciting time because if you think about what's going on with the Power Platform, then maybe you also recognize it here. I'm a huge a lot of the Rings fan, and I love this following scene. So if you think about the hobbits, these are the smallest persons in this story. And at the beginning of the story, you wouldn't have had an idea that they will become the heroes of the story. But here at the end, that's a scene very close to the end of the whole movies. Everybody is taking a knee, and at this moment, they become the tallest persons of the whole area. They become the heroes of the story. And I think with the Power Platform, you can become the hero of your own story. And that was what I told to Tanya as I came back from my vacation. I said, yes, I understand that you had this talk with Daniel, but Daniel is a software developer. He is thinking about building this stuff in the way he learned to do this. You have new options. So it's time for the makers. It's time for citizen developers, the solution creators. There are so many buzzwords out there, but what's really important is that you can build your own app. And I will show you how to do this because we have a huge playground there with Microsoft 365. And please don't think that you need to learn all these tools at once. So focus on something. And I would recommend start with the Power Platform. I think everybody of us is used to use Microsoft Teams for meetings and for chats. Maybe you don't use this for working together in a team, but that doesn't matter for me because you know what's going on in Teams, and maybe later on you will have a business solution based on the Power Platform, and then you will integrate it into Teams only because you don't want to switch between different applications. And SharePoint is a tool which is out there for many people, maybe based for an intranet, maybe to store documents because you're working with teams and SharePoint is behind this. But if you build business solutions, don't think to store your data in SharePoint immediately. In some cases, it's a good solution, but in some cases it isn't. And I will explain what's the other solution to do this. So if we go with the Power Platform, as I said, the Power Platform provides the tools for the makers. For me, if I explain how I started my journey here, I started with exploring PowerApps. And PowerApps is the service to build apps and websites. These apps can be used mobile. So that's really cool. And if you build a Power App, in most of the cases, I need a workflow behind this. So I want to click on a button. I want this button to do anything. And then I build a flow in Power Automate. And this can be to store a document at a special location. This can be to add some data in a legacy system and so on. And if you want to get data or store data in another system, then you need a data connector. So we see the data connectors here at the bottom. So these three are going very close with each other. We have also Power BI and Power Virtual Agents, but for me, this was the second or the third step in my journey because Power BI is a really good solution to analyze business data. But first of all, I need to collect business data. So first, I would build my business application, and in the second step, I would think about creating dashboards to analyze my data to learn what's going on with the recruiting process, if you can improve something in the process or so. And Power Virtual Agents, that's the service if you want to build chatbots, which are also triggering workflows, if you want to collect data on a chatbot base, and then at the end, you have a real person, so a real agent who gets this data and can help the customer in a better way. And there is a really good solution also in Dynamics 365 using the Power Virtual Agents. But you could do this with every business process. You can integrate it on your website to help your customers. And for me, as I said, I don't want you to store every data into SharePoint because maybe that's the only solution you know. I want to talk to you about Dataverse. So you see Dataverse here also at the bottom, and Dataverse is the database with all your company relevant data. So you can store everything in it. And if you think about our recruiting process, at the beginning, you would add the contact information of a candidate in this database. You would add the data for the position the candidate is applying to. Then you add all the decisions during the recruiting process. And think about if you, sorry, if you hire this person, then a candidate becomes an employee. But you already have everything in your database. So you only need to add some extra information, maybe that this person will be an employee in a special department, but you don't need to change the contact information because you already have this. I know that there are a lot of other applications out there, and maybe it looks in your company like this, that you have a special tool for recruiting, you have a special tool for employee management, maybe you have a tool for some kind of trainings, and what about to develop the skills of an employee. But if we think from a data perspective, then it's a cool idea to have the central data storage in your company, and that's Dataverse. And we will see this in the live demo also. There's only one information I want to give you before we go into the live demo. That's let's check what Dynamics 365 has to offer. So we see here that there are a lot of modules there. And I know that there are many discussions because I have these discussions as well with my customers because they say Dynamics 365 is so expensive. And I know that the licenses are expensive. But think about if you get a solution here, and we come back to the beginning as I asked Tanya, if we want to change and improve a business process, or if we want to support everything with an IT solution. If you think about that, you get a solution here with different modules, and the modules are supporting your business process maybe for 80% or 90%, maybe that's enough, and then you have only the licensing costs. If you would build these business applications one by one by your own, or you would buy these different solutions, then maybe it can be more expensive than the licensing costs of Dynamics. That's what I want to give you to think about. But we will use the same techniques as Dynamics is working. So if after the session, you will have an idea what's going on there from a technical perspective as well. And that's where I will switch. So we will create our own solution now. and that's here. So we are here in the Power App Studio. So if I go here on this slide and I say, okay, show me all apps, that's the view we saw on the slide. And I go with the Power App Studio here. And we would be here at home. And if you think about creating an app, maybe you would go with apps or you would go with create. But I recommend going with solutions. And why do I recommend this? That's because if you are building a solution, then every part of your solution will be together. So as I said, if I build a Power App, I often have to build one or more flows in Power Automate. So they are related to each other. If I would only go here, create an app, then I would have this app and the app doesn't know, or you doesn't see that it belongs to a flow in Power Automate, because I would open Power Automate here the same, and then I could create a flow. And yes, they belong to each other, but maybe I remember this a few months later, but my colleagues who didn't work with me together, they don't know. And with a solution, you have everything together. And maybe I show you here an example. So I've here the demo HR recruiting prepared, I think 2 years ago. It was the first time I was thinking about this solution. And as you see here, I have 4 components in my solution. One app, one sitemap. So the sitemap is the navigation of my app. And I have 2 tables in it. And if I want to install my solution, maybe on the tenant of a customer. So think about, I would be your vendor and I want to install the solution for you. Without a solution, I would have to add the Power App. So I need to export the Power App from my environment. I need to import it in your environment. I would have to do this with all of my flows and so on. So each artifact after the other. And with a solution, I can export my whole solution at once and I can import it in your environment. So it's a lot of easier and you know what I was doing there. Okay, so we only saw here how it's looking like in an existing solution. Now I go back because maybe you saw that I have prepared here a new solution for our bootcamp today. I only show here the screen that we see what's going on if you create a complete new solution. So you have to give a name, like this is with the bootcamp description, then you get an internal name. And what's important is that you select a publisher. So at the beginning, you have only a default publisher, but then I created a new publisher. So if you have different vendors or service providers, then they will come with their own publisher label. And you will even see if you create apps and so on. I will show this to you in our solution in a few minutes. Then you get some kind of a prefix. So you can see if a table or an app or a flow comes from a special service provider or vendor. And I said that this is from Conet, so that's my company name. And then I can also add a lot of more stuff. So maybe you add a configuration page. You need to prepare this for sure. But if you have a solution and you need to do some configurations first, if you install this, then maybe you will have a configuration page. I don't have this because for me, it's this case only a way to install everything I have in an easy way. And then I go here and my solution is empty. And yes, as I said, Dataverse is our huge database. And I know that somebody else already created a table for the candidates, and he also created a table for the applications. And now I want to add these tables into my solution. So nothing new I want to do. I want to add some existing stuff. And if you have a look here, you see many options. So you can add an AI model, maybe if you want to extract information of a document automatically. I don't have a model. I don't have an existing app, so we will create a new app after adding our tables. I could also add existing flows. So think about, you started in Power Automate, you created a flow, and now you want to add this flow into your solution, then you could do this afterwards. You can add a chatbot from Power Virtual Agents, or dashboards or reports from Power BI. You can add some security roles. So if you want to build an app with different roles and permissions, then this will become relevant to you. And you can also add tables, and here's a lot of more stuff. I won't go through all of this because I want to add these tables now. And I could scroll down if I find my tables, but I can also use this search field here. And I know that my candidates are here. And have a look about the name. That's the internal name. And if you see here, contact, that's a built-in name. So it's a built-in table, and I only change the name here in my environment. Maybe you wouldn't do this because contact seems to be really general. So maybe you would build your own candidate table. But for me, I wanted to show you that's even possible to go with some standard tables and to rename this. Let's say next. And I include all components related to this table. So a table has not only the columns and the data in it, it has also different views with filters and sorting for the data. It has different forms to add a new item, to edit existing items, and so on. And there's some more coming up, but this is quite more easier to see if we go into the app later on. So I will say include all components, and then I will show this to you in the app designer. So I'm adding my candidate table, and I will do the same for my applications table. Please don't be confused that it's not called application here, it's a German wording. Because I was doing this primarily for a German demo environment. But you can see here that we have application in the internal name. And here you see the prefix I was talking about. So for my publisher, Conet, I've selected a prefix CSBA. So I was thinking about a cool acronym for Conet Solutions Business Applications. Yeah, and that's how every component will show up. So I know that candidate is the built-in contact table, and I see, okay, at the application, that's a custom table because I see the prefix of the publisher there here. So I go with next, I include all components again, and I add this one. And so we have 2 items in our solution at this moment. But I want to build this app now. So, and here, as you see, we have different options. A page is only a page, but what's going on with the different app types? I will go with a model-driven app because I'm thinking from a data perspective. So I'm thinking about what's going on with the candidate, what's going on with the applications. I'm thinking about an application which has a lot of tables with different views. I'm not thinking about a Canvas app because a Canvas app would be Yes, it would be flexible. I would be able to create a smartphone view. I could add screens and build a complete free screen with some buttons and images and some text and so on. But I don't need to do this. I need an application which will be used by my colleagues in the HR department who are working with their desktop PCs or their notebooks, and they need to get a lot of data in a tabular way. So let's go with model-driven apps. I go with the classic app designer. I will show you the modern designer at the end of the demo. But the classic app designer, I prefer this at the moment because it's more structured for me, so I don't forget anything to do with my app. The modern app designer, as you see, is in preview, so they will come more functionalities which I'm used to in the classic app designer. But you will see the difference if I go with the modern app designer in the second part of the demo. So I say create this app, and now I will get a screen where I need to name my new app. And after naming this app, I have to think about what I want to do. And here it's showing up. So you see the prefix here again. Let's say, okay, let's see, HR recruiting system for the global power platform bootcamp. This internal name, and it has to be unique in your whole environment, is set here. You can add a description, an icon, and whatever. For us, I will go with the default settings. Say done. And here, if you are familiar with Canvas Power Apps, then you will think about, oh my God, what's going on here? I have no clue how to design my app, and I have no idea how it would look like. And yes, that's the reason why we will see the modern app designer as well, because that's more related to the Canvas Power Apps. But as I said, I prefer this way because I'm thinking from a data perspective, and I want to add my data into my app. I want to think about the navigation, and then maybe it's enough for my use case. So as I see here, entity is the old wording for tables. So I need to add my entities because yes, I add candidate and application to my solution, but I could have multiple apps in my solution, and why should this app know that I need the applications and the candidates in here? So I need to add them. So I check this, and I go as candidate, check this as well. And that's why it was important to me to include all components for my tables, because I now have all forms, all views, charts, and dashboards in it. And I can use them. And I will save this, and then we will have a look at the sitemap, because the sitemap has a warning in it. So something is missing there. We go here and you see the breadcrumbs. So we are still on the app designer, but now we are in the subgroup of the sitemap designer. And we have 3 levels of our navigation. So we have an area, a group, and a sub area. What about the new area? You see here the property pane, which shows up. I could select an icon. There are several icons here already prepared for me. I should add an ID. So first, the IDs are set for me here, but from a technical perspective, I recommend that you set good IDs here. And you should also add a title. So if I go here, I say that's the recruiting or area. maybe I want to start with some master data management. See here, we have only these options. And then we have the sub area. And as you see here with this red marks, that was the reason why we have the warning symbol for the sitemap in the app designer here one step before. Because now I can select what's my real menu item. And for me, it's the entity because I want to have a menu item to access my applications or to access my candidates. I could also integrate a dashboard, an external link. So maybe you have another application you want to access from your application. And that's cool to build relationships between different business applications. If you have this Dataverse as the central data storage, but you have different apps for recruiting, employee management, and so on, then you could have a relationship between them. And web resource, that's for anything else. So if you need to build some stuff and you need a software developer he is building some stuff with JavaScript and so on, then maybe you will have the web resource option here. I'm going the easy way because I said I want to get you to become a business application superstar. We go with the entity and we select our entity, and this could be anything. In my case, I want to go with the application. I could also add the idea here, but I'm going with the second one, doing the same. And yeah, the candidate. And maybe you recognized here he's doing this with the Pro version. So we have not application, we have applications, and we have not candidate, we have candidates. And then I say, okay, I want to save this. And please don't forget to publish this because otherwise other people would see this. So I publish my sitemap. And then I go back to the app designer. I save this one as well. I have to publish my whole app also. And after publishing, I can play my app so I can have a first look what's going on. And think about, we only said we want to create an app. We added our tables and we created the sitemap. And that's how our application looks like. I know there was some preparation. So because if we have to create our tables, then it would be one step more, but we all know how to create a table. So think about the name of your table and the columns you need. And here in this case, that's cool because the other applications which are already working with this data, they did a good job for us. So we have now data in candidates. We have now data in applications. And if you would need to create a new candidate, do this with clicking on the new button. We see here all the contact information, and the layout is very familiar to people who are working with Dynamics. Because you know that there will be several tabs, you know that there can be a timeline to add some stuff, what was going on with the candidate. It's not active if you create a new candidate, but if you open an existing one, then you could add notes after notes, what was going on. And you may be familiar that each data row, or here in this case, each record is belonging to a person. So there's always a person who is responsible for this data. And maybe for a recruiting process, that would be a person of the HR department. If you are thinking about a customer relationship management, then you would have some salespeople who are responsible for the different customers. And that's what is called owner here in this case. So I could work with my candidate information, and you can also change the layout of these forms as well. I want to show you one more thing because we need to focus on something related to the time for the session. If we go with the application, if I create a new application, you see here that I can add some information. I have not so many stuff here on the right side. If I go back and open an existing one, maybe you go with this person here, then you see that I have more information here. So I see what's going on during the rating process. So somebody added a rating. We have a space to work with documents and so on. But what really keeps in mind is this business process bar here. And that's nothing else than a special flow in Power Automate, which is related to the table or the entity of the applications. So I said, okay, if I have a recruiting process, then I will have 4 major steps. So first, the application will be new. Then you have an initial rating, maybe done by the HR department. Then you are doing a lot of interviews, and last but not least, you will get to a decision. Yeah, and that's what we prepared. And if you go to the app designer, we didn't do anything. So why does it show up? And that's because I included all components for my 2 tables, and I got a business process flow as well with this action. So we see here that there is a business process flow. He's called in the same way as we see it here in the naming. And if I open this, then we are going to Power Automate in a way. So I like this, that's always opening in a new window, not in the browser tab. And then you have to define the different stages. So as I explained, we have 4 different stages, but you could also work with conditions. So think about that if you are doing the interviews and then you think about the next step would be to wait if you get other applications for this position. And after this, you will go with your decision and so on. So you can go with different conditions and build the complete different workflow. It will only be a line on your in your application itself, but it could be different stages you will see there. And in each stage, you can collect data. So this will probably be data you will see in the form under this process bar. But this can also be that you say, okay, a special field gets a mandatory field in the initial rating stage, for example. Or if you move to this stage, then you would trigger a flow that's to automate a process. And that's really, really cool. Yeah, and that's nearly all you would do here. So I will not show you the stuff with the date dashboards because for me it's the second step, as I said. What I want to show you is if I go back in my solution, what's going on with the other app designer. So you see here we have this model-driven app and the related sitemap. And now we will create a second model-driven app. And I go with the modern app designer. You see it in the background that it looks a little bit different. So I say here HR recruiting and modern global power platform bootcamp. Create. For me, it's really important that I see this option here, switch to classic. So I can start with the preview modern app designer, and then I can switch to classic if something is missing for me. And here you are looking from a user perspective. So you get a preview here. You can add a new page. You can build your navigation. So we have here the group and the sub area part. You see what's going on with your data, which data is available in your environment. And maybe we go here with adding a page. Let's have a look here. And then you can say, okay, it's a table-based view. That is the option we saw with our two tables. We can say it's a dashboard that would work with Power BI, or we go with a custom page, and that's the one you are familiar with if you're working with Canvas Power Apps. So that's only the difference with the modern app designer, and that's where I go back to the slides. Because as I said in my session title, we have 5 steps, and 5 steps means that there has to be some kind of a checklist to become a business application superstar. And here is my checklist for you. So first of all, take responsibility. Decide to be a citizen developer, a maker, a solution creator. And if you have made this decision, then learn to use the tools of the Power Platform. Choose whatever you prefer. If you say, okay, I want to start with Canvas Power Apps and I want to store my data in an Excel sheet or in a SharePoint list because I'm used to do this, start with this part. If you say, I prefer to build my first flows with Power Automate, then that's also a good option. If you have the option to work with the Dataverse and build model-driven apps, do this as well. So there's no wrong part how you could do this, but start to learn to use the tools. And create a quick win solution. So think big, but start small. Create a quick win solution, a really small solution, as you saw here, because then you will be successful and there won't be so many frustrating moments, because with a huge solution, you have the risk that you won't complete this. Inspire your colleagues. So build a team and talk about what you are doing there. And talking is a good point. Share your knowledge and talk about what you are doing. Do this in your company, but do this also in the community. So every speaker on the different community events started like you. He was learning, he was doing something, and then he decided to apply for his first session on an event. And there's always a person who is thankful if you share your knowledge. So that's it. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?